I was standing in the cereal aisle at Walmart last Tuesday and I noticed something that stopped me cold. The shelf I usually grab from was half empty. Not because of a storm, not because of a holiday, just gone. And the price tag on what was left had jumped almost 30% from 2 months ago. That's when I pulled out my phone and started making a list. Not a panicked list, a smart list. The kind of list most people never make until it's too late. Today, I'm going to walk you through 30 foods that essentially never expire. These are the items I've been quietly building up in my own home over the past year. And some of them are going to surprise you. Stick with me, because number 8 on this list is something almost every American buys every single week, and almost nobody realizes it can last for decades if you store it right. You will not believe it when I get there. And before we dive in, if this kind of insider, practical content is what you're looking for, hit that subscribe button right now. I put out new videos every week and I don't want you to miss what's coming next. Let's get into it. Item number 1. White rice. This is where I start every conversation about food storage, and there's a reason for that. White rice, stored correctly in an airtight container or sealed mylar bag with an oxygen absorber, can last 25 to 30 years. That is not a typo. Researchers at Utah State University confirmed this in long-term storage studies. Brown rice doesn't work the same way. The oils in brown rice go rancid within 6 to 12 months. But white rice? It's one of the most stable foods on the planet. I keep about 50 pounds of white rice in sealed 5-gallon buckets in my basement. I rotate it slowly, using it in normal meals throughout the year. It's not a bunker thing. It's just smart household management. If you haven't started with rice, this is your first move. Buy a 50-pound bag at Costco or a restaurant supply store. Transfer it into food-grade buckets with lids. Throw in an oxygen absorber. Done. That's a year of backup calories for a very small investment. You don't want to be the person wishing they had done this 6 months ago when prices were lower. Item number 2. Honey. Honey is the only food that archaeologists have found in ancient Egyptian tombs that was still edible. Thousands of years old. Still good. This isn't marketing, it's chemistry. Honey's low moisture content and naturally acidic pH create an environment where bacteria and mold simply cannot survive. It crystallizes over time, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Just warm the jar in hot water and it returns to liquid. I made the mistake once of throwing out crystallized honey because I thought it had gone bad. When I looked it up, I realized I'd wasted about $12 worth of perfectly good food. Raw honey tends to crystallize faster than processed honey, but both last indefinitely. Store it in a sealed glass jar, away from heat and light, and you will never have to replace it. If you buy one thing from a local farmer's market this season, make it raw honey. You're getting a food that doubles as a natural antimicrobial, a sweetener, and a shelf-stable investment that outlives most of us. This is about protecting your pantry and your budget at the same time. Item number 3. Salt. Salt has no expiration date. None. It's a mineral. It was here before humans, and it will outlast all of us. Iodized salt does have one small caveat. The iodine can degrade slightly over time, but the salt itself remains perfectly functional as a food preservative and seasoning essentially forever. What most people don't think about is how valuable salt is beyond the shaker. Salt is how humans preserved food before refrigeration. If the power grid ever has a serious problem, or if you want to preserve your own meat, vegetables, or fish at home, salt is the foundation of everything. I keep plain sea salt and canning salt in large containers in my pantry. I paid almost nothing for them. A 5-pound bag of sea salt at Walmart runs under $3. Stock up on salt in bulk. It takes up almost no space, costs almost nothing, and lasts longer than anything else in your kitchen. If prices on canned and packaged goods keep climbing, and they will, having salt means you can preserve fresh foods yourself instead of paying premium prices for processed ones. Item number 4. White distilled vinegar. Vinegar is one of the most overlooked items in the long-term pantry. White distilled vinegar lasts indefinitely because of its high acidity. The FDA actually recognizes that vinegar's acid content prevents the growth of harmful bacteria without any added preservatives. It doesn't just last forever. It does more jobs than almost any single item in your kitchen. It's a food preservative for pickling. It's a cleaning agent. It cuts grease. It kills certain mold types on surfaces. And it costs about $2 a gallon at most grocery stores. I use white vinegar for pickling cucumbers from my garden every summer. I use it to clean my coffee maker. I use it in salad dressings. That 1 gallon works across 6 or 7 different tasks in my household. Buy a few extra gallons and store them in a cool, dark place. The smell is strong when you open the bottle, but it's harmless and fades quickly. This is one of the best value per dollar items you will ever put in your home. Don't overlook the basics. They're basic for a reason. Item number 5. Pure vanilla extract. This one surprises people every time I mention it. Pure vanilla extract, made with real vanilla beans and at least 35% alcohol, has an indefinite shelf life. The alcohol acts as a preservative that keeps the aromatic compounds stable for decades. Imitation vanilla extract, the cheap stuff, does degrade over time and loses its flavor intensity. But the real thing? I have a bottle that's been in my cabinet for 6 years, and it smells and tastes exactly the same as the day I bought it. The price of vanilla has been volatile. Real vanilla beans have experienced significant supply disruptions from weather events in Madagascar, which produces most of the world's vanilla. Pure extract prices reflect that. If you bake at all, buying 2 or 3 bottles of pure vanilla extract now is a smart hedge against rising prices. The bottle I bought 2 years ago for $14 at Trader Joe's is now running closer to $19 or $20 at most stores. It lasts forever, and the price is only going up. This is the kind of quiet win that most people walk right past every week. Item number 6. Baking soda. You probably have a box of baking soda in your fridge right now that you use as an odor absorber. But baking soda as a leavening agent, stored in a sealed container away from moisture, lasts indefinitely. It loses some potency over time for baking specifically. A quick test: drop a teaspoon in hot water with a splash of vinegar. If it fizzes vigorously, it's still active. If it doesn't, it might be better for cleaning than baking at that point. But here's the thing. Baking soda is so cheap and so versatile that stockpiling it is almost a no-brainer. I use it for baking, for cleaning pots, for scrubbing sinks, for deodorizing, for treating minor skin irritation. A 4-pound bag at Costco costs around $4. That's nothing. Keep 5 or 6 bags sealed in a dry container and you've covered a dozen different household needs for years. If supply chains tighten on cleaning products or specialty baking items, you've already got a solution sitting on your shelf. Small items like this are where smart preppers actually win. Item number 7. Hard liquor. I want to be clear about what I mean here. Spirits, vodka, whiskey, rum, gin. At 80. Proof or higher store indefinitely when sealed. The alcohol content prevents microbial growth entirely. An unopened bottle of quality bourbon or vodka doesn't just last decades. It can last centuries in the right conditions. Opened bottles are best used within 1 to 2 years for optimal flavor, but they don't become unsafe. Now, why does this belong on a practical stockpile list? First, alcohol is a useful antiseptic for first aid. Second, it has trade and barter value in any serious disruption scenario. Third, and most practically, it's a hedging strategy against price increases. State tax policies and supply costs for spirits have been trending upward in several states since 2024. I'm not suggesting anyone drink more. I'm saying that a few sealed bottles of a mid-shelf spirit represent stable value, multi-use utility, and a genuine indefinite shelf life. This is the one item that my grandfather always kept a small supply of, and I finally understand why. Item number 8. White sugar. Here it is. the one I teased at the top, white granulated sugar does not expire. Ever. As long as it stays dry and free from contaminants, it remains chemically stable indefinitely. The FDA does not require an expiration date on sugar. The dates you see on bags are quality recommendations from manufacturers, not safety cutoffs. I know. You've been buying a new bag of sugar every few months your whole life, probably without thinking about whether the old one had actually gone bad. Most people have. I did too, until I looked into it. Sugar is also one of the most price-sensitive items in the grocery store right now. Domestic sugar prices have been elevated due to ongoing import restrictions and domestic crop pressures. A 5-pound bag that was under $3 3 years ago is running $4 to $5 in most regions in 2026. Buying in bulk at Costco or Sam's Club and storing sugar in sealed, airtight containers keeps it dry and perfect indefinitely. I keep 25 pounds on hand at all times. You will use every ounce of it, and the price will not be lower next year than it is today. Item number 9. Dried beans. Dried beans are one of the most nutrient-dense, calorie-rich foods you can store for the long term. Black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, lentils, all of them have a shelf life of 25 or more years when stored in sealed containers with oxygen absorbers. The texture may degrade slightly after 10 years, meaning they might need longer cooking, but they remain safe and nutritious. Canned beans are convenient, but dried beans give you roughly 3 times the yield per dollar and last 10 times longer. That math matters when you're thinking about stretching a budget through uncertain times. I rotate about 30 pounds of assorted dried beans in my pantry. Black beans go into soups, tacos, and rice dishes throughout the year. Lentils cook fast and cost almost nothing. Chickpeas become hummus. If you're new to long-term food storage and you want the best calorie to dollar to shelf life ratio available, dried beans are it. Buy them in 2-pound bags at any grocery store or in bulk at a restaurant supply store like Restaurant Depot. Transfer to sealed containers. You're done. This is the most efficient food storage decision most families never make. Item 10. Rolled oats. Rolled oats stored in sealed, airtight containers last 20 to 30 years. This has been confirmed by long-term food storage research from multiple university extension programs. Oats are inexpensive, filling, versatile, and nutritionally dense. They're a complete morning meal, a baking ingredient, a thickener for soups and stews, and the base for overnight oats, granola, and energy bars. The price of oats has been rising steadily. Quaker Oats, one of the most common brands, went through 2 significant price increases in the past 2 years alone. The store brand version at Walmart is still relatively affordable, but the trend is clear. When I checked prices last month, I noticed that a large canister of oats had jumped about 15% compared to what I paid for the same product in early 2024. Buy oats in bulk, transfer to sealed 5-gallon food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, and store them in a cool, dark location. A bucket of oats is breakfast for months. At the cost of maybe $30, that's one of the best decisions you can make for your household food security. Item number 11. Powdered milk. Fresh milk has a short shelf life. Powdered milk, stored correctly, lasts 2 to 10 years depending on storage conditions. Non-fat dry milk in a sealed, oxygen-free container stored below 70 degrees Fahrenheit can reach the higher end of that range. It provides protein, calcium, and the ability to make a wide range of recipes that require dairy without any refrigeration at all. Powdered milk isn't glamorous. I'll be the first to admit that fresh milk tastes better. But when you're baking bread, making soup, or mixing into oatmeal, powdered milk works just as well and costs a fraction of what fresh dairy will cost if supply disruptions hit. I keep a 10-pound container of powdered milk sealed in my storage area. I've used it during a power outage and was glad I had it. It mixed into coffee just fine. It worked in biscuit dough. Nobody complained. If you're building a serious pantry, powdered milk belongs on your list. Augerson Farms and Wise Foods are 2 brands with solid reputations for shelf-stable dairy products. Item number 12. Freeze-dried fruits and vegetables. This is where the stockpiling conversation gets genuinely exciting. Freeze-dried foods retain up to 97% of their original nutrition and have a shelf life of 25 to 30 years when sealed. The freeze-drying process removes moisture without the heat damage of traditional canning, which means flavor and vitamins are remarkably well preserved. Companies like Mountain House, Augerson Farms, and Thrive Life sell everything from freeze-dried strawberries and apples to peas, corn, and bell peppers. The upfront cost is higher than canned goods, but the shelf life is dramatically longer and the nutrition profile is far superior. I started buying 1 or 2 freeze-dried cans per month about 18 months ago. I now have a respectable variety of fruits and vegetables that will outlast almost everything else in my storage room. If prices on fresh produce keep trending upward, and food economists are pretty consistent in projecting that they will, having a deep supply of freeze-dried produce gives your family real food security without ever touching fast food or processed junk. This is an investment in future you, and it's one of the smartest ones available. Shea, item number 13, pure maple syrup. Real maple syrup, not the high fructose corn syrup imitation, lasts indefinitely when unopened due to its high sugar content and low moisture. Once opened, it should be refrigerated, where it lasts about a year. But sealed and stored properly, it's another one of those foods that essentially doesn't expire. The price of real maple syrup has climbed significantly in recent years. Canadian producers who supply the majority of North American maple syrup have faced both weather challenges and increased global demand. A gallon of Grade A dark amber maple syrup that ran around $30 in 2021 is now closer to $45 to $50 in most retail settings. Buying a sealed jug now locks in today's price against a product that is genuinely trending upward. And if you use maple syrup regularly, on pancakes, in baking, in marinades, you'll use every drop. This is one of those items where people think, I'll buy it when I need it, and then end up paying 20% more 6 months later. Get ahead of it. Item number 14. Instant coffee. Fresh ground coffee loses its flavor within a few weeks. But instant coffee, sealed in its original container or transferred to an airtight jar, lasts 15 to 20 years. The freeze-drying process used for most instant coffee products removes nearly all moisture, which is what causes degradation in traditional ground coffee. Coffee prices have been significantly elevated since 2024 due to crop disruptions in Brazil and Vietnam, the world's 2 largest coffee producers. Arabica bean futures hit multi-decade highs in late 2024 and haven't settled back down. What you pay at the grocery store reflects this. I started rotating a 3-month supply of Folgers and Nescafe in my pantry. Not my first choice for flavor, but in a pinch or when prices spike. Having caffeine on hand matters more than having specialty beans. If you're a serious coffee drinker, having a backup supply of instant is straightforward household insurance. A large jar of Nescafe at Costco gives you months of backup at today's prices, not tomorrow's. Item number 15. Soy sauce. Soy sauce has an almost indefinite shelf life due to its high sodium and fermented composition. Unopened bottles last essentially forever. Opened bottles stored in the refrigerator maintain full quality for 2 to 3 years, but remain safe well beyond that. The sodium content prevents spoilage in a way that very few other condiments can match. This matters for more than just stir-fries. Soy sauce is a foundational umami ingredient in marinades, soups, glazes, and dipping sauces. Having it in abundance means never paying the premium for the small bottles sold in airport convenience stores or reaching for a flavorless substitute. I noticed soy sauce prices had quietly increased about 20% at my local grocery store over the past year. When I switched to buying the large Kikkoman bottles at Costco, the savings were significant. Stock a few large bottles in your pantry. They take up minimal space, last practically forever, and add enormous flavor range to inexpensive proteins and vegetables. It's a simple addition that makes long-term food storage significantly more enjoyable. Item number 16. Cornstarch. Cornstarch stored in a sealed, moisture-free container lasts indefinitely. It's a thickening agent, a coating for fried foods, a stabilizer for sauces and gravies, and a surprisingly effective short-term solution for certain skin irritations. It has household uses beyond the kitchen, including as a dry shampoo substitute and a fabric care product. The price of cornstarch, like most corn-derived products, has trended upward as corn-based ethanol demand competes with food production for the crop supply. A 5-pound bag costs very little and takes up almost no space. If you're building a pantry for long-term cooking flexibility, cornstarch lets you thicken any sauce, stretch any soup, and coat any protein for pan frying without relying on pre-made sauces or mixes. It's one of those items you only notice when you run out. Keep a solid backup supply, and you'll never be in that situation. Item number 17. Ghee. Ghee is clarified butter. Butter that has had its water content and milk solids removed. What remains is pure butterfat. Commercially produced ghee in sealed jars lasts 1 to 2 years at room temperature, and indefinitely in the refrigerator. Some traditionally produced ghees from South Asian food suppliers are aged intentionally for years and considered more valuable as they age. Butter goes rancid. Ghee doesn't. And ghee performs almost every culinary function that butter does: sautéing, roasting, finishing sauces, at high heat without burning like regular butter does. I switched to using ghee for most of my cooking that previously called for butter. The flavor is richer and slightly nutty, and my cooking improved as a result. I buy large glass jars of Forth & Hart brand ghee when it goes on sale at Thrive Market or Whole Foods. Stock 2 or 3 jars. They hold well at room temperature until opened and last for months in the fridge after that. In a world where dairy prices are unpredictable, ghee gives you the functionality of butter with a fraction of the spoilage risk. Item number 18. Coconut oil. Refined coconut oil has a shelf life of 2 years or more at room temperature and significantly longer when kept cool and dark. Its high saturated fat content, the same property that makes it controversial among some nutritionists, is also what makes it extraordinarily shelf-stable. Unlike polyunsaturated oils, which go rancid quickly, coconut oil resists oxidation for years. I use it for high-heat cooking, as a moisturizer, and as a base for homemade energy bars and granola. It's one of the few cooking fats that works inside the kitchen and outside of it. Prices on coconut oil have fluctuated based on supply from the Philippines and Indonesia, the primary producers. Buying a large jar or two when prices are at a seasonal low is a straightforward way to lock in good value. Stored in a sealed container away from direct sunlight, a large jar of refined coconut oil takes up very little space and supports cooking across a wide variety of methods and cuisines. Item number 19. Whole peppercorns. Ground pepper loses its potency within a year. Whole black peppercorns, stored sealed, last 4 to 5 years with full flavor, and indefinitely from a safety standpoint. They just gradually lose aroma over time. Pepper is the most traded spice in the world. It has been used as currency throughout human history, and yet most people buy the pre-ground version in those little blue tins and replace it constantly. I switched to whole peppercorns and a simple grinder about 2 years ago. The flavor difference is significant, and because I buy in bulk from a spice retailer or at Costco, I pay maybe a third of what I was spending on the pre-ground version. This isn't just about shelf life. It's about flavor quality and cost efficiency running together. Keep a large sealed bag or jar of whole black peppercorns in your pantry. Grind fresh when you cook. Your food will taste better. You'll spend less, and you'll have a supply that lasts for years. Item number 20. Dried pasta. Dried pasta, the regular white flour variety, not fresh or egg-based, lasts 25 to 30 years when stored properly in sealed containers. It's one of the most calorie-dense, affordable, and versatile foods in existence. A pound of dried pasta typically costs under $2 and provides 4 to 6 servings as a base for an enormous range of meals. Pasta prices, like most wheat-based products, have been subject to fluctuations tied to global wheat markets, which have been anything but stable since 2022. Buying in bulk and storing sealed locks in current pricing against further increases. I keep a rotation of spaghetti, penne and rotini in large sealed containers. I also keep some pasta alternatives, lentil pasta, chickpea pasta, for nutritional variety. They have shorter shelf lives but still last 2 to 3 years. If I had to design the most cost-efficient emergency food supply possible, dried pasta would be in the top 5 every time. It's filling, it stores well, and almost every family already knows how to cook with it. Item number 21. Bouillon cubes and powder. A pot of rice tastes like rice. A pot of rice cooked in chicken broth tastes like a meal. Bouillon cubes and concentrated broth powders last 3 to 4 years sealed, and much longer without any serious safety concern, primarily losing flavour intensity over time rather than becoming unsafe. They transform basic pantry ingredients into real, satisfying food. And that psychological dimension matters enormously in any scenario where you're cooking from stored supplies instead of fresh groceries. I keep a mix of chicken, beef, and vegetable bouillon at all times. I buy the Better Than Bouillon brand in large jars because the paste version has richer flavour than the dried cubes. It stays good in the refrigerator for a year or more after opening. If you're stocking a pantry, don't forget flavour. The difference between eating beans and rice every day and wanting to eat beans and rice every day comes down almost entirely to seasoning. Stock your bouillon. Stock your spices. Your future self will thank you. Totten. Item No. 22. Canned tuna and salmon. Commercially canned fish has an official shelf life of 3 to 5 years, but studies have found canned tuna remains safe and nutritious well beyond that. A tuna can from 1974 tested in the early 1990s was found to still contain usable protein and acceptable quality. Canned tuna and salmon are among the best sources of lean protein available in a pantry format. They require no cooking, can be eaten straight from the can, and form the base for dozens of quick meals. Tuna prices have been edging upward. The major brands, Starkist, Bumblebee, Safecatch, have all adjusted pricing over the past 2 years as fuel costs for fishing fleets and global demand increased. I buy light chunk tuna in water in multi-packs at Costco. It's less expensive per ounce and the quality is consistent. I aim to keep at least 30 cans at any given time, rotating the oldest ones into regular weekly cooking. This is protein security at a very low price. And in a genuine disruption, protein is the hardest thing to replace. Item number 23. Apple cider vinegar. Like white vinegar, apple cider vinegar lasts indefinitely due to its high acidity. But apple cider vinegar has an added dimension. Raw, unfiltered ACV with the mother, the naturally occurring probiotic colony, has legitimate culinary and wellness uses that have made it one of the most searched health products of the past several years. Bragg's is the dominant brand. Their raw ACV is shelf-stable, well-researched, and available at virtually every grocery store in America. A large bottle runs about $7 to $8 and lasts for a very long time. I use it in salad dressings, in marinades, diluted in water as a digestive aid, and as part of a simple surface cleaning solution. One bottle does a lot of work. The wellness industry has driven ACV prices upward as demand has increased. Stocking a few bottles now at current pricing is smart. This is one of those products where you either use it constantly or wish you had more of it on hand. Item number 24. Jerky and dehydrated meat. Commercially produced beef jerky has a shelf life of 1 to 2 years sealed. But properly made, low-moisture jerky stored in vacuum-sealed packaging with oxygen absorbers can last 5 to 10 years. Dehydrated and dried meat was the original long-term protein solution for humans, used by indigenous peoples, explorers, and armies throughout history. The principle is simple. Remove moisture and bacteria cannot survive. If you have a food dehydrator, you can make your own jerky from beef, chicken, or venison at a fraction of the commercial cost. The upfront investment in a dehydrator pays off quickly if you make large batches. Commercially, look for jerky with low moisture content and minimal added sugars or sauces. Those additions reduce shelf life. The simplest versions with just meat, salt, and basic spices last the longest. This is portable, protein-dense food that requires no preparation. For a go bag, a camping supply, or a deep pantry, dehydrated meat fills a gap that almost nothing else does as efficiently. Item Number 25. Olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil has a shelf life of 18 months to 2 years from the harvest date when stored properly. Sealed, in a dark glass bottle, away from heat and light. It doesn't last as long as some other items on this list. But here's the thing most people miss. You will absolutely use it before it expires if you're stocking reasonable quantities. And olive oil prices have experienced dramatic volatility over the past 2 years. A global olive oil shortage driven by multi-year droughts in Spain and Italy, which together produce most of the world's supply, pushed prices to record highs in 2024 and early 2025. Prices softened slightly in late 2025 as some harvests recovered, but supply analysts are cautious about projecting continued improvement. Buying 2 or 3 extra bottles when you see a sale locks in a lower price on a product you'll certainly consume. That's just intelligent shopping. Store olive oil in a cool, dark cabinet away from the stove. Don't leave it on a countertop in sunlight. Handle it right and it's excellent through its full shelf life. Item Number 26. Alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Commercially produced hand sanitizer with at least 60% ethanol has a regulatory shelf life of 2 to 3 years. But the active ingredient, alcohol, doesn't chemically degrade. What expires is the manufacturer's guarantee of efficacy, not the alcohol itself. We all learned during 2020 what happens when hand sanitizer disappears from shelves. Prices went from $1 a bottle to $15 overnight. The people who had a modest backup supply were very glad they did. A large pump bottle of Purell or a store brand equivalent costs around $5 at Walmart. Keeping 6 to 12 months of supply sealed in a cool location requires almost no storage space and no ongoing investment. I treat hand sanitizer the same way I treat batteries. I always keep a backup supply and I rotate it slowly. There's no scenario where I regret having extra. This is about household preparedness, not panic. The goal is to never be in a position where you're paying a 10 times premium for something you should have bought at regular price 3 months earlier. Item Number 27. Dried herbs and spices. Dried herbs and spices don't technically expire from a safety standpoint. They do lose potency over time. Ground spices start to fade noticeably around 1 to 2 years, while whole spices and dried herbs maintain strength for 3 to 4 years and sometimes longer. But here's the overlooked angle. Spice prices have been rising sharply. Vanilla, pepper, cinnamon, turmeric, cumin, all have seen price increases tied to supply disruptions in their growing regions. McCormick, one of the dominant retail brands, has raised prices multiple times since 2022. Buying from bulk spice retailers, Penzeys, the Spice House, or bulk sections at stores like Sprouts gives you significantly better quality at lower per-ounce prices. Store in sealed glass jars away from heat and light. I reorganized my spice collection about a year ago. I threw away anything more than 2 years old and replaced it with bulk purchased whole spices. The quality improvement in my cooking was immediate and significant. Stock the spices you use most. Buy them in quantities that make sense. Your cooking will improve and your spice budget will shrink. Item 28. Hard cheese, wax and shelf-stable cheese. This one is for the more adventurous preppers in the audience. Commercially produced shelf-stable cheese, the kind vacuum-sealed in wax or heavy packaging, lasts 2 to 4 years without refrigeration. Brands like Bega Cheese from Australia and Tillamook's shelf-stable varieties are available through specialty retailers and online. Beyond commercial products, hard natural cheeses like Parmesan and aged Gouda can be waxed at home using food-grade cheese wax and stored at cellar temperature for months to a year or more. Cheese is one of the hardest foods to replace in a long-term pantry scenario because there's no simple shelf-stable equivalent. Nutritional yeast provides some umami character but doesn't replicate the real thing. If dairy is important to your family's diet and cooking, and for most American families it is, investing in a small supply of shelf-stable cheese makes your long-term pantry dramatically more satisfying and nutritionally complete. This is a quality-of-life item as much as a survival item. Both matter. Item number 29. Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. This might be the most important item on the entire list, and the one most people overlook. A Mylar bag with oxygen absorbers is what transforms ordinary bulk rice, beans, oats, and pasta into a 25 to 30-year shelf-life food supply. Without proper storage, even the most shelf-stable foods degrade in years or months due to oxygen, moisture, and light exposure. Mylar bags are inexpensive, durable, and easy to use. You fill the bag, drop in an appropriately sized oxygen absorber, seal the bag with a household iron or hair straightener, label it with the date and contents, and you're done. I learned this from reading through USDA extension publications and food storage guides from a few universities. The difference between storing oats in an open canister versus a sealed Mylar bag inside a bucket is the difference between a 2-year shelf life and a 25-year shelf life. Without this step, you're leaving most of the value of your food storage on the table. With it, everything you've built becomes a genuine multi-decade resource. Don't skip the bags. They are the infrastructure behind everything else on this list. Item number 30. Dark chocolate. We end on something genuinely enjoyable. Dark chocolate with 70% cocoa or higher has a shelf life of 2 years or more, and often significantly longer when stored in a cool, dark location. The lower sugar content and higher cocoa percentage reduce the conditions that lead to bloom, rancidity, and spoilage. Beyond the pleasure factor, and don't underestimate that, dark chocolate has real caloric density. A single ounce provides over 150 calories and meaningful amounts of iron, magnesium, and antioxidants. Cocoa prices hit 40-year highs in 2024 due to devastating crop failures in Ghana and Ivory Coast, which together produce most of the world's cocoa. Chocolate prices in 2025 and into 2026 reflect that. Brands that used to be affordable have raised prices significantly. Buying quality dark chocolate in bulk, from Trader Joe's, Costco, or a specialty retailer, and storing it properly means locking in pleasure and calories at current prices. Your pantry should sustain you, but it should also bring you some joy. Dark chocolate is one of the easiest ways to make sure it does both. Here's the thing I want you to take away from all of this. Every item on this list was chosen for one reason. It lasts, it costs less than what's coming, and it works in real life for real families. This isn't about fear. It isn't about expecting the worst. It's about being ahead of the curve in a world where prices only trend in one direction, and the people who planned a year ago are in a much better position than the people who are planning today. Most people will notice rising food prices and empty shelves and shrug. They'll adapt in real time, paying more for less, meal by meal. The people who watch videos like this and actually act on what they learn are playing a different game. They're building stability, one smart purchase at a time. You don't have to do all 30 of these at once. Pick 5 that make sense for your household. Start there. Build slowly and deliberately. In 6 months, look at what you've assembled and you'll be genuinely glad you started today. If this video gave you something useful, a new idea, a new perspective, something you're going to act on, hit that like button and share it with someone you know who needs to hear it. And subscribe if you haven't already. Next week, I'm getting into the 8 household supplies that are about to get a lot more expensive. And trust me, most people have no idea what's on that list. Until then, shop smart, store smart, and stay ahead. I'll see you in the next one.